So we want to get our pasta going. So folks should have a quart pot. I'm using this lower pot because it already has a strained basket. We should have a pot of hot water on. And we're looking for 2 quarts of water. I have a measuring cup, but you can also just eyeball it. A rule of thumb is when your pasta goes in, you want to leave probably an inch above. So 2 quarts of water into your pan, turn that bad boy up to high. And here's what's most important, right? And we think we already know this. We never, ever, ever put pasta in cold water. Because pasta is ultimately flour that's been folded, that's been kneaded, folded, stretched, and cut into different shapes. If that sits in cold water, it gets very soggy and loses the shape and also the taste. So you want to make sure your water is boiling. And how do you know it's boiling? You'll start hearing and seeing the bubbles. All right. Do we have a pledge? Pre-pledge to never ever put pasta in cold water? Thumbs up for a pledge.
Yes, put pasta in cold water, or no, to boil it?
Never. It needs to be boiling water. So you need to be seeing bubbles or hearing bubbles.
So you put the pasta in after the water boils?
Water, yes.
Oh, I never knew that. Cool.
Yes. So pasta is flour, right? So these are pretty much flour, egg, salt that's been, made into a dough, rolled out, cut into shapes, and then dried. If this sits in cold water, it gets really soggy and it loses its flavor and its taste. If it goes into hot water or boiling water, it just starts to cook immediately and then you pull it out. So it retains its shape and its flavor and its essence, really. All right. So do we have a hot water on? Do we have a pan with hot water going?
Getting there.
Okay. Now we're going to add some salt to that water. We're looking for a teaspoon of salt. As usual, I'm going to eyeball it. You're going to put a teaspoon of salt in that water. So you want the water to taste like salt, but not too salty. Because the pasta will start to get its flavor from that salt. It will wake up the flavors in the pasta, okay? I am really missing the faces today. No pressure, but I do like to see what you guys are doing. All right, so thumbs up if you have your 2 quarts of water in your pan. You also have your teaspoon of salt in that pan. And I'm gonna close my pan. That way more of the heat stays in and it gets to boiling more quickly. Now, because you guys have been doing classes for so many weeks, well, so many months now, you guys are in the advanced stage, right? Or intermediate stage. So let's do 2 things. While your water is boiling and you're listening, remember we engage all our 5 senses when cooking. We're listening, we're looking, we're smelling, or we're touching things, or also feeling things, right? I missed one. Sight, sound, smell, taste. Oh my gosh. The most important one, you get to taste things. So you're gonna listen out and look out for your pasta. The water for the pasta to be ready. Can we do that? If you have a co-chef, they can also be on the lookout. So let me just peep one more time. No bubbles yet, still waiting. So while you're waiting for your pasta water to start boiling, can you grab your blender or your food processor? If it's not nearby, you can barely hear me sometimes. Okay, I heard that. Let me do this. I'm gonna switch my audio real quick. But while I'm switching my audio, I'd like you guys to get your blender or your food processor out and ready. Recording in progress. How's this? Is there an echo? There is an echo. All right.
Okay, yeah, you have two cameras going. I forgot it. Okay.
How are we doing now?
Yeah. When you're close, I can hear you great, but when you're far away, I can't really hear. Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna stay here so you can hear me.
Do whatever you have to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, so we have two things going on, chefs. We have our pasta water coming to a boil, and you are reaching for that blender. You're reaching for that food processor. If you have a NutriBullet, whatever you have, you're gonna reach for that and get ready to go. Can we do those two things? Okay. All right, when folks are ready, we can start making our pesto. So I'm gonna get my food processor ready. I'm gonna open the top. I'm gonna make sure to ask an adult, whatever adult's in your home, to help you with this. Make sure your blade is on the inside, it's all snug. You're gonna have a rubber spatula or a wooden spoon. Rubber spatula, a wooden spoon, a plastic spoon. We do not want to have a metal spoon for this part, okay? So again, thumbs up if you have your food processor or your blender ready.
Okay. What type of spoon do we not want?
Metal.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yes. No, I can hear my pan going. You think I think my pan's ready? Yep. See, I have bubbles going on here because I can hear it bubbling. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour my pasta into my hot water and then close that. So your pan is boiling and ready. You can put your pasta in. That pasta goes for 15 minutes. We'll make our pesto. By the time we're ready, it will be ready to go. All right, so thumbs up. Let's start making pesto.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Can you just give me 1 minute?
Just like 1 minute.
Just like
to
one-
get everything together.
Just like 1 minute to get so we can get everything together.
Okay. While you're getting things together, I think most folks should have boiling water, and therefore they should be putting their pasta in. And I'm going to ask you for 1 minute.
Hi, guys. I'm going to chime in while Tamika is signing out and just suggest that you keep an eye on your pot of pasta water just so it doesn't overflow. I am famous for letting my pasta water boil a little too hard. And when I turn around, suddenly it's leaking over the sides of the pan. So I'm just going to give you that little tip from my own experience. You want it to be bubbling, but you don't want it to be boiling so hard that it's tempted to run over the sides of the pan, okay?
Great tip, Dave. That happens to me too. All right, so we give a minute, and I took a minute. Thank you for your patience. Are you ready to assemble our pesto? All right, let's do it. So the first thing we're gonna do is put our greens. So, or if you have spinach, if you have lettuce, if you have arugula, you guys should have spinach. That goes into your food processor. And then you should also have your nice, lovely basil. Just to be sure, if your basil was on a stem, you're gonna remove and have leaves only. You can also remove as much stem as possible. So you should have leaves. And those go in. Now I like about pesto. A pesto is a pretty rough sauce. And I'm saying sauce loosely because while it's not as runny as, say, a gravy or a barbecue sauce, it is considered a sauce. It's a chunky sauce, right? So you'll have bits and pieces of basil, of spinach, of nuts or sunflower seeds, and also you'll have your Parmesan. So it's a chunky sauce. All right, are those in? Yes, so these were rinsed. Thanks for that. So I already rinsed my greens and I prepped them to go. So you should have the two kinds of greens in your food processor. Thumbs up. If I'm hearing no questions, I'm going to assume I can keep going, okay? You're going to put your nuts in or your sunflower seeds, and those go in. Your lemon juice goes in. Your parm. And so the Parmesan cheese, you should put most of the cheese into the food processor, but save some for serving for the end. I love having extra cheese on top. This makes it so much more yummy. You're gonna do a half teaspoon of salt. Hearing no questions, I'm gonna keep moving unless I hear questions. I'm gonna hold on to my spatula, I might need that. I'm gonna put a tad bit of oil in. You're gonna close your food processor up. And this is gonna go pretty loudly. Are there any questions? Are folks following along? And you're also still keeping an eye and air out on your pasta, right? If you had a timer, 15 minutes would be good for that pasta. May I go ahead and add some and blend? I need a couple of minutes, okay. So while folks need a couple of minutes, I'm gonna mute just because this goes so loudly. I'm gonna blend my pesto for 30 to 45 seconds.
Tamika, real quick, are we adding tomatoes and garlic into the blender?
We are not. Great question. So here's, just to make sure we go over the pesto recipe. So pesto is a chunky sauce that came out of Genova, Italy. Usually green, is very yummy, has cheese or nuts or seeds. And so what you should have in your food processor right now is your basil and your spinach. So the two kinds of greens. You should have your sunflower seeds, your garlic, which I forgot, your garlic, your lemon juice, and half a teaspoon of salt. I added my Parmesan, I shouldn't have. So tomatoes, if you're using those do not go in until the end into the pasta. So one more time, you should have, yes, I made a mistake. Thank you so much. You should have your two kinds of greens, spinach and basil, your garlic, your seeds, your lemon juice, a little bit of salt into your food processor or blender. Then that goes for 30 seconds. So I'm gonna mute myself right now and go for 30 seconds. Is that okay with you?
How much
Right.
salt do I need again?
Half a teaspoon. So my pesto went for 30 seconds. I'm gonna show you what it looks like at this point. At this point, it just looks like grated greens, right? Because there's no liquid in it, well, there's not much liquid in it yet. And the oil or the fat, the olive oil, will pull all those flavors together. And then the Parmesan cheese will thicken it up, will make it thick and nice and yummy. And that yumminess I talk about is called umami. It's that yummy flavor you get from like French fries or cheese or anything that's kind of savory and delicious. It keeps you wanting more. So are you there yet? If you have questions, please let me know what your questions are. I'm gonna put my oil in and my Parmesan. I'm gonna go again for another 30 seconds. You know, I'm gonna keep my my microphone open just so you guys can hear me pureeing. I see how loud it is. It's pretty loud. All right, how are folks doing? Almost there? I'm checking my pasta. Hi, Sandra. we're checking our pasta to make sure we don't overcook or boil. How are folks doing? The family that needed a minute, do you still need a minute? So are folks watching their pasta? I know today's class requires us to multitask, to have two things going at the same time. But you guys, I trust you to move into the, advanced beginner stage. And many of you have done this kind of recipe at home before. So you got this, you have it. Now I'm using my spatula to push down my product. So I'll make sure all my yummy greens doesn't stay on the sidelines, but goes right into my sauce. And my sauce needs a lot more liquid, so I'm gonna put all my oil in and the cheese. So just to remind you, yeah, question, go for it.
Did you put the pasta in yet?
The pasta should be in the boiling water.
Okay.
Great question. Any other questions? I think because everyone's on mute, so I'm not hearing those blenders, but I'm assuming you have those blenders or food processors going.
Do we do the yogurt in the food processor?
Not yet. So that's very important question. That yogurt stays because what you have in this blender or food processor is enough pesto to make 2 batches, right? So we're gonna divide this into 2. We're gonna add yogurt to a half to combine with our pasta for tonight's dinner. And we're gonna put the rest in the fridge for another time. So to answer your question, the yogurt does not go in yet. You should have your 2 greens, basil and spinach, your garlic, your olive oil, your salt, your sunflower seeds, your garlic, and your Parmesan cheese blended for 35 to a minute at this point. 1 second, Alexander. For a minute at this point.
I am trying to also list the ingredients in the chat so people can see it at the right stage.
I'm gonna have my sous chef help me out with blending these ingredients. So I'm gonna mute while I blend. And so folks should be blending their pasta. Sorry, no, we do not blend pasta. Blending our pesto. So if you can say pesto and pasta over and over, I applaud you. Pesto pasta, pretty hard, huh? So we're gonna go one more time for 30 seconds. All right. So not hearing any questions, I think folks are moving along nicely. My pasta should be ready. So I'm gonna move over and check on my pasta. Ooh. No, in terms of readiness of pasta, different folks have different strokes. So some folks like it al dente is, dente is in your teeth, as in to bite, like, you like to have that nice firm taste. There's some folks who like their pasta a little bit softer. So I think after making pasta for a while, you kind of know what you like. But ideally, al dente or like firm to bite, but still fully cooked is a nice rule of thumb. That way, if you're using a sauce, it stays nicely on top and doesn't get too soggy. Does that make sense? So I'm gonna take a fork. You should have some forks nearby. And I'm gonna taste my pasta, right? There's only one way to know if I like it, it's ready. Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. But for timing, it should be 15 minutes. Yes, Sandra. It should be 15 minutes, but you're gonna go ahead and test your pasta to make sure it bites and eats the way you like it or your family likes it.
Tamika, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What happens if you leave your pasta boiling for too long?
Oh, that's a great question, Alec. So that question is like the first thing I said. So pasta is ultimately flour. If it sits in water, it breaks down. If you have it boiling for too long, it swells up most time. Has it happened to you before? It gets super soggy. And it's just not so fun to eat anymore. It almost triples in size. It's hot. You want to blow it? It almost triples in size. It absorbs, the flour absorbs all that water, so it swells up and triples in size. And it's soft. It's not so tasty. But if that's your thing, Alec, that's your thing, right? Is that your thing?
That's it. Yep.
Okay. All right, my taste tester here is eating. My pasta is ready because this child who has a few teeth is eating the pasta. So it's definitely al dente. Yeah. All right, families, how are you guys doing? You should have two things. Pasta should be almost ready. And you should have in your equipment list a calendar, which is really just a fancy name for a strained basket. And for that question that Alec just asked, I'm gonna go ahead and move quickly to remove my pasta from the water. Otherwise it gets soggy, it swells up, and it's no good. My wonderful friend bought me this fancy pan and it came with a calendar built in. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that. Since I only have one pan. Please be sure to ask an adult in your house to help you with this part, okay? You're gonna make sure that you're not handling this hot pasta by yourself. Even as someone who does this over and over, I still am super careful. And also, you know, I've been hurt before, so please be careful. All right. So how are folks doing? So my pasta is ready. I have it kind of like, you know, airing out, cooling down, because I'm gonna have this with my small child, which means I don't want to have it as a hot dish. If you want to have a hot dish, you can have it this way. All right, Team Elevate, how are we doing? We have pesto made. Thumbs up if your pasta is, if your pesto is already made. Or voices. So yes, please drain your pasta in a sieve, in a strainer, in a colander, anything with holes that the pasta doesn't get through, but the water does. No need to go fancy. Whatever you have that allows your pasta to get through, sorry, your pasta to stay in and your water to get through. This child is eating our pasta, so my dish is gonna be a little bit smaller. All right, so do we have our pesto ready? I'm gonna show you mine. It smells so good. It's that fragrance you smell from the cheese and the sauce, and the seeds.
Wait a second.
Do you have a question?
It's only 2 cups.
It's only 2 cups of pasta
For the,
for the. Oh.
it seems like so little, okay.
As a reminder, we'll have enough pesto to make 2 batches. That means you'll have some for tonight for the amount of pasta that you made, and you'll have some to put in your refrigerator for another time. Ideally in the next 3 to 5 days, up to a month if you freeze it. It's all on the recipe, just to remind you, I have a note there, but you can, this makes enough for 2 batches. Now you can always double the amount of pasta you made based on your family size, or if you like a large serving of pasta, go for it. All right. All right, so team, let's go. We have to start combining our pesto and our pasta. So thumbs up if you're there. Your pasta is made and your pesto is blended. Everything except the yogurt. you should still have your yogurt in your jar or in your container. Thumbs up. All right, so while I'm waiting for folks to give me thumbs up, I'm gonna start cleaning my area up, right? I'm gonna start putting things away. Because again, an organized chef is a really good chef. Yes, Sandra. More pasta? Of course. So I'm gonna start moving things away. Anything I'm not using goes into the sink or the dishwasher. Gonna make sure all my dishes are put away. And once you guys are ready, we can start assembling. And assembling is a fancy way to say putting together the two parts of a recipe. So the recipe had two parts. You had the pesto and you had the pasta. Now it's time to combine or to assemble. Gabe, do you have questions for me?
I don't have any questions popping up. I've been answering any that have been coming. I think we're on top of it.
And Tamika, we've seen some thumbs up come in. I know Jack is ready to go. And I think we saw some other thumbs up as well.
Excuse me?
About how long?
Yes.
About how long, should the, pasta boil?
We're behind.
8 minutes is the preferred time according to our in-house amazing pasta chef, Gay.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
I
Thank
put
you.
everything in the chat.
Thank you.
I can't even look at the chat. I can't look at the chat right.
All right, so I'm gonna blend my last bit of pesto, just one more whip. And I'm gonna remove my blade carefully from my processor. If you have a blade that can be removed, I must remove half of my recipe. That way I can blend or combine the yogurt with the pesto.
If you're using a blender, it's likely hard to take the blade out. Just
Yes.
be very careful and work with maybe a wooden spoon or, something that won't, yeah.
Yeah, so spatula, wooden spoon, plastic spoon. I'd say you want to avoid a metal spoon because that will scratch and it's also not so flexible. So I'm taking out half of my pesto. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't blend mine thoroughly because I had a small human on my back. So I have half of my pesto. Now again, a pesto is really a chunky sauce. Chunky meaning it doesn't cook all the way through. You have bits and pieces. So at this point, you should have your yogurt ready and you should have your blended pesto. I'm removing, so just use your best judgment to take half of that batch of pesto and it goes into a bowl. Are folks there yet? How are we doing? I'll walk us through towards the end how to store the other half batch. I'm gonna grab a bowl to make sure. I want to use a white bowl, that way you can see the contrast. So, are you ready to go? So I have my pasta that's been cooked, drained. At this point, mine's not quite room temperature, but it's not steaming hot. I have my Greek yogurt, has plain, not flavored, or my creme fraiche, or my sour cream, just like a delicious, creamy, dairy, creamy base. I also have my pesto, which is the two kinds of greens, basil, spinach, the sunflower seeds, salt, cheese, and the lemon juice and garlic. And I have my dish. I'll pull my pasta over. So please tell me if you're not there yet. I do not want to move ahead without you. I also had some extra cheese, but someone ate my cheese.
Does the yogurt go in as well?
We're about to assemble those. So I'm gonna lower my camera so folks can see what I'm doing here. And I'm gonna go ahead and have someone stop calling me mama. So pasta, pesto, yogurt, a bowl to combine. Excuse me 1 second.
Everyone, Tamika's going to show us exactly how she wants us to throw everything together. So we just be patient for a minute. Keep cleaning up the kitchen, and she's going to show us how she wants us to mix the pasta with the pesto. Just have your yogurt ready, or your sour cream, or your cream.
Thank you, Gay. All right, folks. All right, families, are we ready to combine? So there's a few ways. If you're making a large batch, as in all your pasta, there you go. If you're doing all your pasta for, say, yourself or your family, and if you're using tomatoes, this will be the point at which you have imaginary tomatoes right here. You know what? I'm gonna move over because this camera is better. Look at that. Is that easier to see me here? Great.
I think it's easier.
Perfect. All right, so at this stage, if you're doing this for just yourself, as I am, I'm gonna use a small bowl, but you had your pesto cooked and it was also just hanging out. This should have happened earlier, but a teaspoon of olive oil just really keeps those pieces of pasta from sticking together. You can toss that in right now. Just do some more movement. Right? And then we're about to combine our pesto and our pasta. So you should have a small bowl available to you, and you should have your yogurt. I'm gonna scoop, just because this bowl is larger, I'm gonna scoop my pasta. Now, in my case, I have enough like yumminess here, but if you need to have extra liquid, you could use some pasta water. That's very flavorful, and that would go in to make it a little bit more runny or saucy.
Excuse me.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So now we're making all of the pasta and so we're not doing an individual. So do I put all of the yogurt in with the pasta, and do I still add the pasta water?
So great question. So just to confirm, you're using half of your pesto mixture.
Yep.
So take out a half and put the rest away until we're ready to talk about it.
Yep.
You should have all the measured yogurt.
Mm-hmm.
And by measured, I mean the 3 tablespoons.
Yep.
You should have a half pesto, and you should have an extra cheese for topping, and all your pasta.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
If you do want a little bit of hot water or pasta water, just have it on reserve in case you need it. Here's why it's not a necessary, that you don't absolutely need it. Each spinach will blend differently, right? So some spinach may blend out like really creamy. Some spinach might be a more crispy or crunchy or thick. It depends on the produce you have. Produce comes from the earth, and each one is different. It's not factory made, so it's not perfect, right? So the reason you have pasta water is if you say you had too chunky a pesto and you want some more creaminess or sauciness, you can add it. Does that make sense? Now I'm gonna spoon my pesto into my, I'm gonna combine it.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Sorry.
I'll toss.
Don't be sorry, it's your time.
The pasta is done, and I don't have any sauce ready. What can I do so the pasta doesn't keep cooking?
One more time with your question.
So, I'm behind as usual because I didn't have everything ready, unfortunately.
No worries.
I'm not the best chef. The pasta is done now. Remember, I'm gonna keep mine hot if I can. So what can I do? Because I don't have the sauce ready. I have everything ready to go in the blender.
If your pasta is ready, you can toss some oil and have it laid out.
Okay, I was gonna try to keep it hot though.
One more time.
I was gonna try to, jeez Louise, I was gonna try to keep the dish hot.
I'm having
Remember I
some
said in the
echo.
beginning?
Liza, you can toss it with a little bit of olive oil and cover it.
Okay,
It'll stay warm, and if you find it's too cool when you're ready to eat it, you can just, give
that's,
another minute on the stove.
that's fine. Do I take the water out? Like take the water out and then put the oil, like drain it and then put the oil in it?
Drain off all the water first.
Okay, okay, and keep some of that water, right, though?
Keep a little of that water in a cup or a mug, or, just drain a little into a cup to have in case you want to use it in your sauce. That's fine. Yep, just take.
All right. I've been keeping these for this. Thank you so much.
Yep.
No worries. Thank you, Gay. So I have a pretty chunky version. Again, so I combine my pasta and my pesto in this bowl. Mine is room temperature, to be honest. Right now, it's not quite warm. It's not cold. This dish could be had warm. It could be had cold. It could be had hot. So I have like a chunkier version. But some folks, if they do want, you can add your hot pasta liquid into your pesto, and that will give you more of a sauce. My imaginary cheese, because my person had my cheese. Now, the one thing I haven't done here is you're gonna go ahead and use a spoon and taste this once you combine it before you serve it. Does it have enough salt and pepper? I know I didn't add any pepper, so I'm just gonna go ahead and add some. You're gonna grab a tasting spoon. You're gonna try it, right? You're gonna engage all your senses and make sure you try it to see if it tastes the way you want it to taste. Mine's pretty cheesy and pretty garlicky. I like it that way. Delicious. So, how are folks doing? Camera jumped out of the book side. How are folks doing?
Doing good.
Do we have pasta boiled, pesto combined?
Tamika, are you planning to add the tomatoes or no?
I don't think anyone had tomatoes, but if someone does have tomatoes, that would be a good time. If you have cherry tomatoes, the little tiny ones, those can go in whole, but they can also go halved.
I believe
Does anyone
everyone has them in the
tomatoes?
box.
Were those in the box, tomatoes?
Yeah. They should have been in the box, yeah.
Oh, I thought we didn't have tomatoes. It was optional. Okay.
They were in a box.
They were, thank you, Jack.
Yes, Sandra. So if they were in the box, this is a great time. I'm gonna pretend like I have tomatoes. And I use them here and I cut them in halves. And those will be tossed in right at the end before serving. I'm gonna ask for one thing on your patience, and I'll come right back to checking on you guys.
So I'd love to hear, and please, everybody take your time. Everybody's got their different pace at cooking, right? We're not all Chef Tamika. We can't be super quick and everything like that. So don't feel bad that you have to take time. That's what cooking's all about. But I'd love to hear a little bit about the smells coming from your kitchen right now. Anybody feel free to type in the chat or let us know, what does it smell like?
Smells like garlic and basil.
Ooh, yummy. We got garlic and basil. Yep. Those are great smells.
Has anybody given it a taste? I'm getting really hungry watching. I can't wait.
This
to finish
tastes
class
so good.
myself.
Awesome, Jack. Awesome.
Sorry, what did you say, AA?
Almost like it's similar to cinnamon.
Oh, that's interesting. Basil has a very unique smell to it. So that's funny. I didn't think about cinnamon, but maybe it's a little bit like cinnamon.
Who knows?
Who knows? I agree. The nose knows, right?
All right, sounds like you guys have moved and made. So I did hear Alec earlier, and my responsibility is to make sure we show you the entire recipe. Now, I didn't just learn to do this quickly by doing it once or twice. I actually practiced this recipe before I came on tonight, right? So nobody gets anything right the first time. So I had to make sure I tried to make sure it worked properly, and it did. So take your time. If you guys already have it done, kudos to you. If you're still working, still kudos to you. Everyone's stove is different. Everyone's pan is different. Everyone cuts things at different paces. So don't feel like you need to move along exactly the time or speed that I work on. So while folks are still working, I'm just gonna go ahead and show you how to preserve the rest of this pesto. So you should have some pesto left over. I have these jars, they're called mason jars. To be honest, you don't need to buy a fancy jar. If you buy tomato sauce in the store or mayonnaise or any kind of sauce, you remove that label, free jar, right? So I take these jars, I'm gonna scrape all my pesto into the jar, the second batch. If not scraped, you can scoop. I'm making a mess, which is completely okay. Just need to clean up after. And my pesto goes in, right? Pesto meaning the blended greens, the garlic, some green, the garlic, the lemon juice, the oil, the Parmesan. Ew, let's not waste anything. That all goes in. Kind of shake that down. And you take some olive oil or any kind of oil you have, preferably olive oil or oil that doesn't have a taste. I wouldn't use coconut oil on this because it has a very toasty, fragrant taste. And that oil gets poured on top to make a thin layer. I'm not gonna pour any on top just because I'm gonna use this tomorrow. I'm gonna take it with me and I'm traveling. We're gonna pour
Excuse
a
me?
thin, yes.
When do we use the yogurt?
So just to go back over that, I'm gonna pause right here. And we're gonna go back to the recipe. So you should have had your pesto and your yogurt combined. And then that goes into the pasta and then that's tossed. You put salt and pepper, taste it to make sure it tastes the way you want it to taste. And then that's your finished dish. And you sprinkle the extra parm on top. So to be fair, the yogurt is the last thing that goes in. It goes to marry, right? Or to put together team pasta and team pesto. The yogurt puts them together. It becomes that coat.
Jack, is that your dish? That looks amazing.
Oh, I didn't see show and tell. I love show and tell.
Yeah, anyone who has their dish ready, let us see it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
While you're showing, oh, that looks really yummy. Oh, I love the rotini.
looks
Little
delicious.
spirals. I love seeing rotini, little spirals. You get all the little crevices. So just to finish this up, so your pesto goes into a jar, a thin layer of oil, your top goes on, and this gets stored in the fridge anywhere from 3 to like within this week. So by, let's say, Thursday of next week, you need to have used this, right? It only lasts about a week. There's nothing unnatural here. No preservatives, no additives, nothing that came from a factory. Everything here was natural. So it only lasts about 3 to 5, I'd say maximum 7 days. If you don't plan to make this dish again in 7 days, it goes into your freezer, right? And it stays in your freezer for up to a month. When you do plan to use it, it comes from your freezer. It's thawed at room temperature until it's ready. All that information is step what should be 4, serve and store. So it gives you all the
I have a
details on
question.
how to have this for another time. Go ahead with your question.
Can you store it in a plastic container?
You mean like one of those Tupperwares, like plastic containers, have the top? Yes, mayonnaise container, old yogurt container, anything that could close really tight. The only thing I wouldn't say, don't store it in anything that doesn't close pretty tight. Because air will contribute to it spoiling really quickly. So you say airtight container. So anything that has a screw top or has a nice snug snap top.
And most of you have gotten a few of those containers in the last 2 boxes. So
Great.
once you're done using what's in them, like the olive oil, you can hold on to them for future classes, you know?
And then at minimum, if you don't have a container, a really clean, brand new Ziploc bag, and you still put that oil on top. That's like I can't find anything else and I have to store this, right? But ideally, it goes in an upright jar, container, glass, or plastic. Glass tends to hold things a little bit better. Any more questions? How you combine?
Excuse me.
Yes, go for it.
So should we get the stems off of the basil? Basil. Should we get the stems off of the basil?
Yes, we're gonna get as much stem as possible. It doesn't need to be perfect. Again, a pesto is a very chunky or rustic sauce. So these are the stems. I removed most of mine. The
Okay.
longer stems, the thicker stems, yes. But it doesn't have to be perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
And there's nothing unhealthy about the stems. So if some of you ended up with stems in your pesto, don't worry about it at all. It just makes it a little crunchier. That's all.
I can actually just eat my stem.
Yep, adds a little more fiber. That's all. So don't worry about it. It just makes it a bit smoother when it's only the leaves.
Exactly. Now I know we're right at 6 o'clock, but you guys are still with us. I saw some amazing meals shown earlier. For those who are still working, I trust you completely to finish up that recipe. You have a written copy. You should have a written copy. You know, I like to say, take a recipe, read it first, think about it, make sure you kind of like walk through the steps in your head, and then you take it on. I still have a scratch record, but being organized and having things assembled beforehand really, really helps and cuts down on the amount of time you spend trying to look for things. All right.
Amazing. Everybody give yourselves a huge round of applause. I saw some amazing dishes there. Thank you, Chef Tamika. And please, I saw Iman and Adil. What are we thinking about for next cook or bake class? If you want to fill that out in our post survey there in the chat, you let us know what you would like to cook and we can think about that. Again, we will meet again next month. In the meantime, please send us some pictures of your amazing dishes. Enjoy your meal with your family or friends. And we are really looking forward to our next class. And I hope everybody has a lovely evening.
Can I say one thing too?
Thank you.
I just want to chime in quickly. Look at your farmer's market list and look at the little note I put in the box. Maybe you guys can find a veggie and let us know which one you'd like to use next month in our class, okay?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you guys. Thanks for your
Thank you,
patience
Chef
tonight.
Tamika. Good night.
Always good.